Hey everyone, 144 scale here. My first little series of videos. I wanted to do something I've been meaning to do for a while, and that's go through one of these Japanese videos that they do in Japan and go over it in detail in English, because I've never seen an English one or one that's been translated. In this video, it is the Sword Calamity Gundam, seen here in this drawing, obviously with the words. I believe it's from Gundam Seed. Destiny, maybe. I don't remember if it was in Seed or Destiny. It's basically a close range one with swords and pinchers on its forearms and things like that. But this video is going to cover like a lot of the modeling tips that a lot of people probably don't know about or have questions about, and I can explain to them what's going on. What we have here is on the left is the original, and on the right is after it's done. Don't notice just the colors, but notice how it's painted. This is what the kit originally looks like. And if you look at this, the beam sabers are one entire color all by itself, and it doesn't have much color or detail to color. Like the knives right there on the calves and the things on the forearms, they're all just one solid color, and there's no decent look to it. It's very bland and kind of ugly if you ask me. Point one was seam lines. Point two right here is, if you look at the back of that, it's emptied out. The V-fin is not sharp. It's got those bulbs on it. The face is just one solid color and it's ugly. Point four. If you look in the picture, everything, it's a lot more yellow and red, and that's what they're going to go for in this video. Yay, chapter 1. Alright, he's holding a pair of nippers and he's cutting out the pieces. This is pretty basic. Every modeler should have a pair of nippers. It's pointing to the runner, and then the second arrow is to the gate. The gate is where you clip off most of the time, unless if there's a gate you can't get to. Then it's a good idea to clip the runner so you can maneuver it around to nip stuff off. Notice that he is not nipping directly next to the part. He's leaving some material. This is because if you nip too close, it can leave gaps in the plastic. Now he's shaving it down some, but notice he's still leaving part of the plastic. Also notice that when he nips, the part turns a little bit of a whitish color right where he cuts it. Keep watching, you'll see. What they're doing here is they're taking an X-Acto blade to shave down the pegs. That way you can take the part apart easier. Like this is the head here, and after you put it together, it's normally a pain to take apart. But since he shaved down the pegs, you can put it together and take it apart real easily. So later on, if anything needs to be done, that's an old trick that you can do. Right here, they're going to show how they custom do the face. Normally the face just pegs in, then you put on the front of the helmet, and then it's done. But what happens if you want to paint the face? You're obviously going to either need a very small brush or a different way to do it. So what they're going to show right here is he's marking it because he's about to cut it. They're going to cut open that place where the peg pegged in and shave down a little bit of the cheek here, so the faceplate can actually slide up and in, and that'll allow the entire helmet to be glued together and the seam lines removed so it can be painted later on, which this video will show. But very carefully just take your hobby knife and kind of dig in at triangles, kind of like you would see a lumberjack do on a tree. And eventually you'll whittle it away. You can use a small chisel to make it smoother. And then be very careful when you're doing the cheeks, because you could cut off the entire thing. Or cut off your finger, and that's not good. Alright, a little bit of sanding. Make it smoothed out. Brush away any rough spots. And now what they'd probably do is glue both of those pieces together, which you see here. And then this is an example of how the face will just slide in now, instead of needing to be put in first. That's great. Alright, now this is the leg and the ankle guard. Normally you'd have to put the ankle guard inside and then snap it closed, and then you can't get the ankle guard out. What they're going to do is shave the pegs on the ankle guard and make a hole into the socket so you can slide it in later. So that way you can paint the parts separately and then slide in the ankle armor later. If you notice here, they made it kind of a slot instead of pegs and holes. This is good for when you're gluing the leg together to get rid of the panel lines and painting it. You don't have to worry about that ankle guard getting in the way and ruining your paint work. So that's one way to do it. It's a very, very good way. A lot of kids have ankle armor like that, so pay special attention to that part. If anybody has questions, I can always make an in-depth video about it. Okay, here's the Calamity swords. They are ugly. They're one solid color, including the beam is orange too. On the back you see that long line, that's called flash. That's where there's a little bit of extra plastic left over on the part when the machine separates. What they're going to do is they're going to take just a little piece of, I think that's styrofoam, just a little styrofoam pad or something, wrap a little bit of sandpaper around it, and sand down, well, now they're showing the numb marks, which are the marks left behind after you nip. And it's also getting rid of the flash, making it nice and smooth, so it looks more professional. Instead of like a toy, I mean. The sandpaper they're using here is probably somewhere around a 600 grit, maybe more. They're taking the knife here to get rid of the flash too. This is the basics of getting rid of flash. You just scrape your knife across. Now this is wet sanding. You put a little bit of water on wet sandpaper, and then when you sand it, it creates less friction, so it doesn't hurt it as much, and it's easier to clean the sandpaper out because the water helps get the plastic particles out. It's nice and smooth now. There's no flash line. Looks a lot better. Ah, Calamity Gundam again. Woo! Notice that is also the finished Calamity Gundam. It looks nothing like the kit we're watching, really, but it will. Okay, here are the hips. Still the hip. Okay, they're going to show how to get rid of seam lines. What they're going to do is they're going to take this extra thin cement. It's a plastic cement. It's not a glue. It actually melts the plastic, and then when you put the pieces together, the plastic will actually bond together. Just melt together. So, you'll see right here, you put a little bit of amount on both sides. Don't put them together right away. You got to give the plastic cement about 20 seconds to actually melt, and then do this. You squeeze the pieces together. And there's a little bit of sludge that'll come out, and that's actually the melted plastic. Yeah, it points to it, obviously, making me look like a dumbass. But, and then what you do is, just like with flash, it's just a line, so take your sandpaper and sand it smooth. You'll obviously still be able to see where the line was, but after you paint over it, it'll be completely smooth and nobody will be able to know. So it'll look like it's always been just one piece. And it looks a lot nicer than having that ugly seam line. But you'll notice later on when it shows it. Alright, and this is showing how to get rid of a seam line that's in a hard to get spot. They're using a very small chisel, a very sharp chisel too. If you do this at home, watch your fingers. Still just scraping away the excess plastic. It's really not going to be an option to get sandpaper down in there easily, so... Calamity Gundam! Part 4. Okay. This is the handle that's on the shoulder. If you look on the back, it's hollowed out. This is so they can save money on plastic, but it also makes it look kind of dumb. This is a putty that they sell. You mix the two colors together, and eventually it will harden very, very hard. And you can sand it and stuff. It gets to about like a stone, like a sandstone, if you know what sandstone's like. But they're going to mix it up really well. You need a little bit of water to mix it up. And you want to wear gloves because if the stuff gets on your hands and you're not careful, it can harden and maybe cause cancer, who knows. Now I'm turning the audio off from the original video so you can't hear, but this entire time there's a Japanese female voice in my ear. And she's talking about stuff, but I have no idea what she's saying. Alright, right here they're just using a toothpick to put it in. You can see it's about like bubblegum at this point. And you just kind of put it in and try to smooth it out. It doesn't have to be perfect because we'll be sanding it. So, I mean, that's about the best you're going to get. Is it's going to look like that. It's going to look kind of like frosting. And you're going to let it dry after this. And this is it dry. It's about an hour later, I'd say. And then you take your hobby knife and you just try to cut it flush. I need to get some of these Japanese hobby knives. They're so much sharper than what I have. And then you sand it. And that's actually a metal file, which is something I use a lot. Because sandpaper is it wears out over time. Alright, now he's got it pretty smooth. You can obviously still see the putty inside, but it's going to be smooth to the touch. Which is what matters, because when we paint over it, you're not going to see that. That actually looks kind of neat. The shield was also hollow, so they filled that in. And I believe these were parts on the backpack that held the swords on the backpack. So they filled those in as well. Calamity Gundam again! Part 5. The knives. They're very rounded. And they're one solid color, which is ugly. What they're going to do is they're going to sand these down and cut off some of the flash. Actually, the one on the left is finished, and the one on the right was not. No, wait. Never mind that. Forget it. They were both unfinished. Just one was scored, getting ready to be cut, like this. So now it's a bit sharper, and they're going to sand that down, so it looks more like a weapon instead of a Nerf sword. I don't know why a Gundam would carry around a Nerf weapon, but that's what it looked like. It's a bit pointier. Still sanding, still sanding. Okay, sanding. Still sanding. Welcome to the world of Gunpla. Later on in the video, these walls will be painted, and it'll show them. They won't be solid orange. Bandai gets really lazy. I mean, they could have added a gray tree to this, and this model kit would look twice as good. And I mean, they could have just added a little bit more to the price, like $2. I have a lot of complaints about Bandai, though. Like, where they place their nubs. They put them in the worst spots. They can't put it behind the part. They have to put it right where after you nip, everyone's going to be able to see it. This is especially horrible on gold-plated kits, but I'll get into that in a different rant someday. Right, and here's the V-fin. What they're going to do is they're going to sand it down to where it's pointier, because the Japanese love their pointy V-fins. These look kind of weird with that big glob on the back on the top. So I like to shave my V-fins too. But you'll notice that's a hell of a lot sharper than what it was. That could actually put somebody's eye out. And there's both sides sharpened, which looks a lot cooler.